subscribe, click like, leave one comment below in this video, and you're entered to win something you're seeing right now. Any video we have and will release throughout the entire month of December is a giveaway video. At the end of December, we're going to pick 31 winners from 31 different videos.
What is up, everybody? Dan here at Darium CCGs, and we're bringing you another deck profile. Just showing you some actual decks and gameplay instead of just opening stuff. You know, we try and do a lot of different stuff on this channel. Hopefully, you enjoy it. I played this deck on our stream a bunch over at twitch.tv/Darium's Pokemon. If you want to check it out, we'll put a link in the description below. And I also have links in the description below to our other deck profiles, other gameplay, and even links to buy all these cards if you like this deck after you see it get played and we talk about it a little bit. So the deck is based around Vileplume. Vileplume has irritating pollen ability that lets makes it so that each player can not play item cards any longer. As you know, most competitive Pokemon decks are going to have around 30 to 35, maybe even up to 40 trainer cards, most of which are items. Most players will play around 8 to 10, supporter cards, but another, 22 to 28 of those will be item cards. So this deck plays a minimal amount of item cards because we don't want to wreck ourselves. But how do we get a Vileplume out, basically, is what you're going to be asking yourself. So you want to start with a Vileplume as soon as possible. To get a Vileplume, you need to have Oddish. You need to evolve that into a Gloom, and finally get that to be a Vileplume. Normally that takes a set of 3 turns. Luckily, there's a card called Forest of Giant Plants. Forest of Giant Plants lets each player's grass-type Pokemon evolve during the first turn that Pokemon was in play. So you can, in the same turn, play an Oddish, play the Forest of Giant Plants, play Gloom, and play Vileplume, all in the same turn. So we need to be able to find Oddish, Gloom, and Vileplume. Now, how do we do that? Well, we have cards like Level Ball. Level Ball searches for a Pokemon with 90 or less HP, and you get to put that in your hand. That's all you do. Pretty easy. That'll find you your Gloom, or your your Oddish rather. Then we're going to use cards like Ultra Ball, classic obviously, in every deck almost, to discard 2 cards and search for a Pokemon. So that'll find us our Vileplume. Other than that, basically we're trying to play as many guys to the bench and then play a Shaman. Unfortunately, most decks are going to have Shaman, very expensive. Shaman will let you draw up to 6 cards. If you have less than 6 cards, you draw until you have 6. So you obviously want to play many of your cards and then play a Shaman afterwards and then play more cards. Once you get the Vileplume out, you don't really care about drawing Level Balls or Ultra Balls, any of that stuff, because you already have your Vileplume. You don't really need to find more Vileplumes once you have the one. You essentially shut your opponent off of playing cards like Versus Seeker, Ultra Balling for their Pokemon. If you can get one on the first turn, it's super devastating because most people, you need an Ultra Ball to start setting up everything. So now we have a Vileplume. What do we do? What do we do after the Vileplume? Vileplume isn't very good at attacking. It's just going to sit on your bench the whole time. So we need things to attack. Well, this is a toolbox deck with the Ultra Ball and the Ninja Boy. Again, Ultra Ball will find any Pokemon, but Ninja Boy lets you take one of your basic Pokemon in play and switch it with another Pokemon in your deck. Any cards that are attached, like energy, damage, any special conditions, the amount of turns the card has been in play, and so on, will remain on that Pokemon. So, if our opponent is playing basic Pokemon, we're going to want to use Jolteon. Jolteon has Flash Ray. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. Most players are going to be using EXs. Well, this stops basic EXs. That's very helpful. What if they're not using basics? What if they're using evolved Pokemon? Well, we have Glaceon. Glaceon's Crystal Ray. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage to this Pokemon that are dealt by evolution Pokemon attacks. So we have Glaceon and Jolteon to handle either basic Pokemon or evolved Pokemon. We have Regice, who has Resistance Blizzard, which will stop any EX, evolved or not. So if they're doing just straight all EXs and they don't even have any non-EX Pokemon, Regice might be the best call. Those are our 3 main attackers. If we get them all on the bench, we can just have Mew up front. Mew has Versatile, which lets you use any attack of any Pokemon in play. You just have to have the right energy. That's a lot of different types of Pokemon. That's Electric, Water, and Psychic so far. This is all made possible by Rainbow Energy. Rainbow Energy provides any type of energy, but we have to put 1 damage counter on the Pokemon. 1 damage counter, not a big price to pay to provide any color energy. Toss that on Mew, just like we described, and he can use abilities from any of our Pokemon. The Regice, Glaceon, Jolteon, even this Magearna here. Though Magearna is not going to attack very much, but it does hit very hard. Magearna's Mystic Heart. Magearna's in here because if we have a Rainbow Energy attached to a Pokemon, then our Pokemon cannot be affected by attacks except for damage done to that Pokemon. Also, Magearna hits quite hard, 120 damage. I think that's the most in the deck. Who else do we have in here that we can search for? The Ninja Boy is very, very toolboxy. We get to search for all these different types of basics depending on who we are facing. The Manaphy's in here because it gives our Pokemon essentially free retreat. We don't really want to play Float Stones because they take up a little bit too much space. We have a lot of Pokemon. We need all these slots, and it is an item, which of course Vileplume will be shutting off. So the Manaphy's there for free retreat. If we have a Water or Rainbow Energy attached to one of our Pokemon, we can retreat them even without discarding the energy. We got a Beedrill in here to discard Pokemon tools. If they have an abundance of Float Stones, Fury Belts, or Spirit Links, we can toss the Beedrill up there and get rid of their tools. And then once we have the Vileplume out, we will lock down our tools completely, making Megadex really hard to play against us. Next up, we have Jirachi. Jirachi's another Steel-type Pokemon like Magearna. We're not really going to use our Dream Dance attack. We're just going to use the Stardust. This helps us discard special energy attached to our opponent's active Pokemons. And then if we do happen to do that, we will prevent all damage dealt to our Pokemon, as is the trend in this deck. So obviously we want to have Jirachi, Glaceon, Regice, Jolteon, Manaphy, all these people on the bench. Mew would be the optimal main attacker, but it's not always possible. Sometimes you have to start with one of these other folks. The last attacker in the deck is Lugia. Lugia is just your generic colorless attacker. If they're playing a deck that involves Yveltal or Mega Mewtwo, they're going to have a lot of energy attached to their Pokemon. We can put a double colorless on here and then just try and finish them off. Also, if we happen to go crazy, we can put 2 double colorless energies in deep, Hurricane them, discarding our Forest or Giant Plants, or if they have another, do a nice 150, which I suppose is the actual most effective attack in the deck. Again, you can have Lugia on the bench and have Mew up front and use the ability if you have 2 double colorless energy on Mew. You have your slew of regular trainers. Professor Sycamore, wouldn't leave home without it. N, same deal. Professor Sycamore obviously letting you discard your hand and drawing 7 cards, and letting you shuffle your hand in your deck and drawing as many prize cards as you have, and your opponent does the same. So if you're behind, your opponent has 1 or 2 prize cards left, and you still have 6, this is one of your ways to get back in the game, effectively reducing their hand to 1 or 2 cards, and hopefully being able to get there from that point. We don't use card like Versus Seeker in here because by the time we want to use Versus Seeker, we hopefully have Vileplume set up, and you won't be allowed to use items. So Versus Seeker being an item will kind of screw that over. The Trainer's Mail and the Ultra Ball are okay because they help you set up the Vileplume, and once you have it set up, there aren't any trainer cards, item cards rather, that you like to use. The deck is really hard to play because you have to know what your opponent's doing, what they're setting up, and which of the Pokemon you need to prioritize in your deck to go for, put on your bench, and not fill up your bench very often. The Shamans, there's a lot of them. The reason we play a lot of Shamans is because we don't play a ton of trainers like most decks. We need to have card draw, and Shaman is the best way to do that through Vileplume. The deck is not very cheap. I'll have all the prices on the screen for you for all the cards. The Shamans obviously being almost $60 a piece, kind of put a wrench in the plans. Jolteon's expensive, Glaceon, Mew's expensive. Everyone's pretty expensive actually. There's a lot of EXs in the deck. Doesn't help the cost at all. We do get to avoid some of the more expensive trainers like Max Elixir and Versus Seeker on here, but we do have Trainer's Mail, we do have N. Those are a little pricey. So the deck clocks in at just over $300. You really can't budget it out too well. You could try replacing the Shamans with Remoraid Artillery, but that slows you down a ton. And yeah, this just is not going to be one of your budget decks. You can just take all the Shamans out, but you need a lot of the EXs to do their job, so even though half the price is taken up in the Shamans, I wouldn't recommend budgeting it. So that's pretty much the deck. If you liked it, let me know in the comments below. Leave a like, comment, share with your friends, and of course subscribe. Click on the links below. You can get over to our Twitch page and follow there if you want. You can follow the links to buy some of the cards if you want, and follow the link to the gameplay video to check out what it looks like in action. Thanks for watching.